I mean, really, your clock must be pretty far off.
It shouldn't be. It auto syncs.
I don't know.
Oh no, I just said 5 minutes, not an hour.
Anyway, welcome to the Redeye stream. Today we're gonna talk about the future of libertarianism, among other things, like the end of the world, because we were all supposed to die the other day. You didn't know? Neither did I. Found that out today. Huh. Did you know, Doku?
Ed, I missed that memo.
Yeah, we were supposed to die. It was gonna be like what was it? The 2012. It was like the 20th or some shit, right?
And I don't know, dude. This is news to me before you even told me, so I don't know what you want me to say on that one.
Was supposed to end on December fuck off in 2012, right? So they recalculated the fuck off day, and it was really 2020. And like 2 days ago. I mean, who chooses like June 25th? Isn't that weird? When's everybody gonna die? Oh, fuck it, June 25th.
I don't even pay attention to that stuff anymore. I've heard so many people, oh, the world's gonna end 2 days from now, a week from now, 5 years from now. It ends when it ends, dude. Just with the way 2020 is turning out, as long as I get a refund, I really don't care.
Well, the world's going to end in an hour. Can I have your password to your bank account?
Seriously, at this point in time, I couldn't care less. If it ends, it ends. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm just going to be happy to wake up tomorrow morning, and when the evening rolls around, I'll drink a beer and be happy about it.
I don't think you would be waking up if the world ended, right? I mean, unless your definition of world ending is different from mine.
Well, then why would I care? Like, it's not even worth getting. It's not even worth getting worked up about. So, hey, the world ends. The world ends. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Either way, I wake up and I continue moving forward. Like, why the hell should we even care at this point in time? I'm more irritated with just the non-stop onflow of stupidity after stupidity after stupidity.
Well, we'll get to AOC later.
Oh, no. No, we're saving that for a different stream, sir.
No, we're talking about the end of the world. AOC is the harbinger of doom. Didn't you know that?
We're talking about the end of the world, not the genocide of carrots.
She is a horse face.
Yeah, she's a piece of work. I don't even know.
Like a mask on her. Like the body's okay, right?
And strangely enough, you actually might be onto something there. I'm not sure how I feel about this, but it's not the worst idea I've ever heard.
Yeah, it can't be worse than Bernie Sanders for president. Just saying.
We need to tax the rich and give healthcare for all. I can't even do a good Bernie voice. Someone call Stephen Crowder.
Well, you know why he wanted healthcare for all, right? He'd be dead halfway through his first term, and he doesn't have to pay for it.
Hey, how old is Bernie? Is he like
how old is Moses?
82? He's like 82 or something, isn't he?
I figured he was as old as Moses. That's what I figured.
Yeah, old enough. That's all we need to know. Exact age doesn't matter. The only good answer is old enough.
So, when it comes to the Libertarian Party, Wolfshot of all people said, "Fuck off, Mad Dodge. You made me actually look into your party." Because she doesn't want to vote for, rapist not Bernie. Is Bernie a rapist? That might be slander. Strike that. Retract that from the record.
I haven't heard any allegations against him, but I don't know, man. There's plenty of opportunists out there.
But Biden, creepy Joe, and she doesn't want to vote for, Orange Man bad. So she was looking at the third choice, which is a woman. She is running with the Big L Libertarian platform. Legalize most drugs, but phase it in. Release everybody with non-violent crimes. In other words, pardon the drug offenders. Your basic libertarian jargon, pretty much. She strays away from let's all go out there and have private roads and police, but she sticks really hard to the leftist, peace, love, and smoke some weed, man.
Yeah. I see. That's the strange thing about the Libertarian Party is, and I know you're gonna cringe when I say this because everybody brings it up. There isn't a unifying ideology. You can talk to one libertarian and they'll say one thing, and then you can talk to somebody and they sound completely different. That's really the biggest hindrance to them. I mean, at least the Green Party is only campaigning on one thing and one thing only, and the name says it all.
Well, yeah, they're more global warming and all that. And what's up, Pinoid? How you doing?
I just got done with an interview with Mad Cat.
Oh, how'd that go?
It went good, man. Went good. You know what I'm saying? I'm a little out of sorts today and shit. Just kind of fucking off. Fucking tired. You know what I'm saying? Fucking sitting in this goddamn fucking truck is annoying as shit.
Oh, real quick, I got a phone call. Doku, go ahead. Tell them about what we're talking about here.
All right, well, Pinoid, how do you feel about the Libertarian Party? What's your hot take?
Yo, it's fucking hot garbage. All right, the Libertarian Party is hot fucking garbage. All right, legit. And what they run? They ran fucking Bill Barr and then fucking or William Burr or some shit like that, and then they ran fucking Gary Johnson twice. Yo, their fucking party is fucking trash. It's a bunch of fucking weed heads, and all they want is to be able to smoke fucking weed in public. That's their main fucking talking point to anybody's. Oh, we should just legalize drugs, man. That's really what it's about, man. And you know, we need less rules for Walmart, man. Like, fuck the Libertarian Party.
All right, so while Dodge is doing whatever it is he's doing, I'm just curious, what's your stance on not drugs but just marijuana? Just out of curiosity, I don't think we've ever actually had this conversation.
Oh God, he's a giant weed fucking head hater. I heard him yesterday. Fuck you, by the way.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't really care if. Yeah, I don't care if weed's legal or not, right? Like, I literally just don't give a fuck. I don't care what you do in your free time. I just hate weed heads because they're annoying and bad at math.
Actually, you have to be fairly good at math if you ever want to actually make money when it comes to that industry.
No, you just have to be good at like fucking buying oregano. Gotta be good at buying oregano.
But we're not going to dive right into it because that's a different conversation.
Buying oregano and keeping a Toyota Tercel running.
Goku and I, before we jumped on here, we're having a conversation. He says the libertarians are pretty much, out of it. The country's too divisive this time around, but maybe 2024. I don't know who to put up, though. I mean, Adam Kokesh can make a good speech and he can make a run for it, but really, no one's going to buy into his ANCAP shit because he wants to become president and then 10th Amendment all the way and pretty much not do anything. I mean, you can't run on, I'm going to get in office and just live there. That's not a good platform.
I don't know. The ANCAPs they've been gaining a little bit of traction. I wouldn't say it's anything significant, but they've been garnering more attention than, I don't know, back in 2008. No one really gave a damn about ANCAPs. Hell, half the people that were going to be voting didn't even know who the ANCAPs were.
Well, that's the thing, though. If you don't want federal control over anything, why are you running for the highest office in the land that happens to be the head of the federal government? Ron Paul never even went this crazy. He said, hey, I'd audit the Fed, bring the troops home, legalize marijuana, and release the non-violent drug offenders. So pretty much anyone that got arrested for drugs and hasn't been in prison long enough to get caught an assault charge.
No, Dodge, the answer to that is actually pretty straightforward. Whether it's a smart strategy or a stupid strategy, and I guess that's a matter of opinion, but if you're trying to gain traction, go for the most exposure possible. How are you going to get exposure and create a viable platform if you can't compete with the two major, as we were talking earlier, lesser of two evils? Well, shit, go for broke. You're probably not going to win. I highly doubt you'll be able to compete with the GOP candidate or the DNC candidate, but it definitely gives you exposure and it gives you a lot more attention. So, hey, why not?
What we need, right? What we need is a billionaire, right? We need a billionaire who can fucking do what Ross Perot did, right?
We had one. He was a millionaire, but we had one, and now they want to throw him in jail. And I'm talking about McAfee.
No, we need a billionaire, right? We need a real, actual fucking billionaire.
So
like,
what? You want somebody brothers to run? They never win. Never.
Okay. Look, I'm not talking about a Koch brother, right? I'm talking about somebody who legit, I like Donald Trump, right? That's why I like Donald Trump, because I think Donald Trump is doing exactly what you're supposed to do, right? And Donald Trump actually gives a fuck about Donald Trump, not a domestic president, right? He's the first president we've had who's been about fucking dealing with the international shit that we've had to deal with that we haven't dealt with since 1992.
He's a businessman, not a politician.
No. He's a politician. Legit. It's just we don't recognize this because all we know is Clinton, Bush, and fucking Obama when it really comes down to it at our age. We weren't really around and paying attention for Bush or Reagan. Right?
But Bush excuse me, Sonny.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, but Bush was an international president, right? We never dealt with the Berlin Wall falling.
Reagan smash. But no, what I think we actually need for the Libertarian Party to inject life back into it, we need someone different than that at first. Maybe he doesn't win, but what we need is Penn Jillette. Somebody who's going to entertain, who's gonna get a lot of attention, who's going to blow the numbers back up like Ron Paul did.
Yo, fuck Penn Jillette.
Why?
Because he's not even a libertarian.
Yes, he is. How is he not?
No, he's not. Yo, he fucking did a video where he sat there and said to fucking, okay, we should have Social Security and Medicare.
He said for the people that already paid into it because they paid. What are you going to do? They paid. It was supposed.
No, he
The
said
fact that it's now a Ponzi scheme is irrelevant when what it was actually supposed to be. Okay, the government they have a responsibility to deliver upon what was owed. They took these people's money for their entire lives. Their entire lives they paid into this shit.
Yeah, they took ours and we're not going to get anything.
And we should. And then actually, if they stopped right now and stopped taking it, and then we just use tax money to pay it out and end it, that would be better. You know, yeah, take on the debt, but that would be better. Same with student loans, and then no more federal loans. Sorry, gone. Not having them no more. Colleges, scale back down to where you should be. Fuck off. We're done.
I don't want to go down this. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too much, but just the fact that state-run institutions are receiving federal funding, especially educational institutions. Hey, I'll be as open and blunt about it as possible. I'm not living on the East Coast, so I can pay tax dollars that get funneled through the federal government to go pay for some program at UCal Berkeley that's on the opposite end of the country. No, I'm sorry. I'm not on board. F that. No.
Well, then you got to end it. How do you end it? You can't just stop and be like, fuck off. Right?
Well, by going with what you're saying about like Social Security, or you could use any other type of welfare program. You're going to have to repay on debts that are already owed. Yes, that's going to have to happen, but you need to have a hard date where, like, anything past this, you will not be taxed for it.
I would write it in. If I'm able, I would write an executive order saying, as of a week from today, we are no longer granting student loans. If you have a loan, we're going to fulfill what we were obligated to. And I don't know if I want to go full forgiveness on it, because they should pay. And I owe some student loans now. That school ripped me off, which is I'm a little bitter about. Watch out online schools, by the way.
That's the thing. You don't even necessarily need full forgiveness. Like, if you really want to meet in the middle, like dude, look at how Fannie Mae, Freddie Mae, and Ginnie Mac were treated back when the 2008 collapse happened. You could give people that owe debt a certain amount of kickbacks or a little bit of a leniency. But again, you're gonna have to look at who's holding the debt, where those particular financial assets are, what type of forgiveness are they gonna get. It's not the easiest thing to do, but there are ways to go about it.
My argument would be fairly simple. Look, federal government had no right to extend these debts to begin with, these loans. We had no right. We were funding a bank that we had no right to create or fund. And no, we're going to end financial loans, student aid. We're going to end it. We're also going to end a bunch of subsidies. Just wait. The list will be soon. It'll be huge.
Well, and Dodge, you have to ask the question, though, who owns a lot of these debts? Because the dirty little secret is that a lot of these student loan debts, whether they were issued by the federal government or not, there are certain banks that actually do hold at least a little bit of stake in some of these student loan debts, and those are private entities. So you're going to have to do a lot of finagling and a lot of backdoor deals to actually make this happen. And I will guarantee you right now, there's going to be a lot of banks that aren't going to like that idea, because that's profit that they're losing out on. It's not that they're losing out on the assets, but they're losing out on the profit. And you will see a lot of pushback if you try to do that.
So there's one thing with the education system that I reckon should actually happen is that, like colleges and universities and stuff like that, especially if they're getting grants for students and stuff like that through student loans and whatnot and kickbacks and subsidies and things of that nature. If the student gets through the end of the course and doesn't pass, the university doesn't get paid. Because this is something that, like, in some cultures and stuff like that, like, not so much cultures as in demographics, I mean, like, as in, like, industries and whatnot, there are certain things that you have to be really stringent on with the rules and whatnot, and then there are other things, and these are usually the instructional parts of it where you start to learn this shit. They've got so real lax fucking standards, it's not funny. So it's a kind of a thing of, like, well, you've got to get to this high standard to get this qualification, but we don't actually have to be at that high standard to teach you that. So you can give us all the money, and whether you pass it or not's up to you. And it's not performance based, you see. And this is where, like, say, like, you got your doctors, teachers, and things like that, where they don't get into trouble for when their job fucks up. So they just seem to think, oh, well, I can charge squillions, and if something goes wrong, well, I've got anti-indemnity and all this kind of shit that fucking will protect my ass. So they don't bother doing a decent job in the first place. And like the universities have just turned into a massive con. They basically just rip off governments left, right, and centre. So while you're getting the US government to pay student loans and stuff to put Americans through there, university itself is getting kickbacks from foreign governments and all this. And I'm going to go bang on the fucking the CCP gong again. There's usually China that's putting a lot of these, like, a lot of money into these universities. And you think those universities are going to side with America if the CCP starts talking? No. We've already seen in different countries there that all these universities are going to side with bloody China. Doesn't matter what country they're in. So that I reckon they should have a massive fucking inquiry. They should drain that fucking swamp, get all the communists out, get all the fucking hippies out, fucking start teaching people actual qualifications. And if they start learning shit like, how to adjust their feelings in a hippie environment or some fucking stupid bullshit course like that, they should have to pay the government back tenfold.
Well, I stick by there shouldn't be. Okay, so college was expensive. It's always been expensive, but it was never this expensive before you introduced federal financial aid.
Yep,
now,
that's right.
Obvious Enigma says universities double dip tuition and money from the government. Here's the thing.
Exactly.
It's even worse. It's even worse. Okay, so I went to a college, a physical college. I had my full loan, which I had already paid back. Okay. But I took my full loan and I had enough money for 3 months rent, food, bus, daycare. I was taking the full loan and the full burden, but I had all the money I needed to survive for 3 months until I got my next loan. I did online university, which should be cheaper because you don't have to buy the books and nothing else. It's just electronic licensing. And they gave me one payout from my full loan. And then a year and a half, I didn't get anything. I was doing YouTube and getting pennies for, I bet half of you don't even see ads, right? That's what I was making. Like nothing. And going to school and racking up debt. They were ripping me off. Finally, I had enough.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're stuck with that fucking debt that, like, you get halfway through the course and figure out fucking actually this isn't quite me, or this is a bit more a bit more involved than I thought.
Farty, I was getting great. I was doing okay with my course. I couldn't live. My wife's like, we don't have insurance money. And I'm doing full-time 40 hours a week school. I should be getting a stipend coming in. Any other university, you would get a stipend, right, Doku? If you're taking your full federal loan and your grant.
Usually, yes. And this is a little bit more more of a top tier umbrella point to make, but it's a point I'm going to make anyways. A lot of this stuff starts to go south when you come to the realization that the government is not supposed to be in the business of handing out loans or acting as a bank in any way, shape, or form. We're not going to get into the argument of central banking systems and things like that because we'll be here until the sun comes up my time, 6 hours from 6, 7, 8 hours from now. But just a very basic question: why is the government involved in the issue of handing out loans, whether it's to a student or to an institution? I would even argue to a state. The state can tax.
I would go a step further. Why are they insuring the banks? The banks should have private insurance, sir.
And see, this is again not the rabbit hole I want to go down, because again we'll be here forever. That's the problem that you have with the very idea of a centralized banking system. If anybody wants to go look into why that is absolute garbage nonsense, look into a man named J.P. Morgan. Look into what happened to England post-Napoleonic Wars, and go ahead and look at the relationship between the Federal Reserve, the U.S. Treasury, and the U.S. Mint. Either way, the government is not supposed to be involved in the system of handing out loans. The states can go ahead and tax and take care of that on their own end. That's something that the state governments can engage in. The federal government's just supposed to be there to make sure that things are well regulated and make sure everything's on the up and up as much as it can be. The federal government. Sorry, Fardy, real quick. The federal government is not there to give you loans, and they sure as hell are not there to bail you out, and they sure as holy hell are not there so they can be a dumping ground when a loan goes tits up.
Right. Well, that's funny how that works, and a lot of people talk about like government encroachment and how they're taking liberties and they're putting things in. And there's what's the fucking thing called? A precedent, right? And it's funny how that shit usually ends up being like with the Industrial Revolution, and then you come into something like World War One, where America hasn't really gotten too far into the Industrial Revolution, but now you are going to need to. You need to ramp up your country's education and industrial capabilities and all this kind of stuff. So how are you going to do that? Right. Here's a stimulus package. We'll put a shit ton of cunts through college, and then there's our scientists. You put a bunch of cunts through there. There's our engineers, and and these programs usually stick afterwards. And then when something else happens, there's usually something that comes like, well, we did this the last time. Why don't we do something a little bit like that? And that's where you do end up with, government aid packages for, the industry and things like that.
Here's the problem. When the government gets itself involved in education, which the main way it always does it is simple. It funds it. Money.
Yeah.
Now I get to tell you what to do. Okay. I think 80% is a good number of your entire student base to reach these numbers on these standardized tests. Well, hey, federal government, bureaucracy, dude. We have special needs student. We're a school for the deaf. Fuck off. I don't care. I want them to reach this number. You reach below this number, we're cutting your funding a little bit. Well, that's not going to help us reach the number. Fuck off. We don't care. That's what they do with the public school system. You don't think they're going to do that with the community college system? And then the only thing that the universities are doing are recycling and giving tenure to these hippies that grew up smoking weed and listening to Grateful Dead, and now they're preaching Marxism. Yep. So, and the federal government is funding them as well. And who is control of the federal government most of the time? It goes Republican to Democrat, Republican, Democrat. But you know what's always been steady? Democrat. Who owns the House? Democrat. How long have they had the House, by the way? Pretty fucking long time, right?
Well, as soon as Farty goes, I'm gonna hop in and say my 2 cents.
Yeah, it's just real quick on the strategic side of things, though, with the education kind of thing. You'll have a situation like what Japan and China had at the turn of the last century, where Japan was technologically advanced because they did have education and all this. China was isolationist, no industrial capabilities whatsoever, and they got walked all over by the Japanese. And that's part of the reason why you guys did the same thing too, is because you guys needed to keep up with the industrial world, and to do that, you needed to have your education and all this kind of stuff. So that's how those things come around.
All right. Micah?
Mhm. Yep.
All right. So touching a little bit on what Dodge says, and I want to boil this down to the simplest argument possible. At the end of the day, specifically talking about federal government, what is the role of federal government, or at least what should the role of federal government be? Are they a regulatory institution or are they a financial institution? Because you can't have both.
They're neither. They're here to protect our freedom and liberty.
Yeah, but
They're
see,
here to protect our
that's what
natural
makes
rights. That's their only creation, though. No.
Dodge, that's what makes them a regulatory institution. And even if that means regulating the security of the borders, representing the nation as a sovereign nation as they interact with other sovereign nations, making sure that the rule of law is upheld on a federal level, yeah, they're a regulatory institution, and specifically the federal government. They are not a financial institution, which is why the entire idea of the welfare state, as far as the United States is concerned, and the way that our government is structured, was a horrible idea to begin with in the first place.
Well, the idea that the government itself is competent enough to run all of these things simultaneously and communicate within its own branch to coordinate these different offices is ridiculous. Because we all know the right hand does not know what the left hand is doing. There's a reason for this. I mean, hell, did you hear MC the other day? Right? MC on his morning show said this about Fort Bragg. He said, yeah, you know, all those fancy, all that fancy equipment you see, they don't have that at the checkpoints. You go in and out fairly easily. I mean, if you're coming in, you have to get checked. If you're not, you know, there on official business, they run a background check or whatever. They do that at the fort I was supposed to go to in Louisiana, but CVID, and I couldn't go. But you know, it's not all high-tech equipment. Even the Pentagon is somewhat has somewhat antiquated equipment. And I know I said that word wrong. Fuck off. I say lots of words wrong.
Antiquated.
I see BMs run on fucking those really huge old floppy disks still. Like, not the 3/4 inch, the large ones. Like, these things were like fucking record albums. Floppy disks.
Okay, so if we can't even control our own national security on base, why the heck are we trying to control the education system, regulate commerce between the states? And that's not what regulate meant, by the way. I've said this before, I'll say it again. To regulate, when the Constitution was written, meant to make regular. Commerce back and forth. That's it. No interstate fighting. That's it. Open borders between the states. That's it. Not to regulate, not to search everything, not to say that you can't build a gun in Michigan and sell it in Wyoming. That's not why it was created.
Well, and see, that's kind of getting
arguments, not security. Ace, I see you in the chat. What's up?
Yeah, and see, that's kind of getting more to the heart of the argument that I was trying to make earlier, is when you're specifically the federal government. I'm leaving state and local government out of this because that's state and local government. That's a completely different animal, completely different conversation. But specifically in regards,
real quick, I have to respond. Ace, yeah, I know. I was already told by my dad and his buddy, who was the one that was still serving and was going to take me on base and show me around. Like, I was gonna get to go check out fucking a bunch of shit. It was the Air Force Base, so I was gonna get to go look at some badass planes and shit. And then CVID happened, so I couldn't.
Yeah. Hey, you win some, you lose some. But
Yeah.
no,
Well, no,
more
my link is in my Discord if you want to jump on. You know, I didn't get to go, so I can't tell you about going through the gate. I was talking about MC's comments on his morning show. If you don't believe me, go refer to his channel.
But no, I'll get back to the point that I was trying to make, and again, specifically in regards to federal government. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe it was the Articles of Confederation. One of the biggest hindrances to that type of federal government was the fact that they couldn't fund themselves because they didn't really have the authority to tax anyone because, well, it wasn't written into the Articles of Confederation. The federal government, yes, do they require funding in order to carry out their job and protect the sovereignty and, by extension, the rights of the states and what they're supposed to be protecting, you know, doing the job that the federal government was established to do to begin with in the first place? Yes, they do require funding, and being government, that requires taxation. Federal government is not supposed to be in the position of acting as a financial institution. They might issue currency, but they're not supposed to be a bank. They're not supposed to be a loan. That creates such a confounded problem, a conflict of interest. And I'm not going to get into the idea of super PACs and lobbying groups. That just makes the situation 10 times worse than it already is to begin with. The federal government should have only 3 jobs. 1, protecting the sovereignty of the nation. 2, upholding the Constitution. And 3, regulating states so that they uphold and stand by what the federal Constitution is supposed to be. That's it. They protect our borders, they fund our military, and they make sure that the Constitution is not subverted. That's the job of the federal government. End of story. They're not a bank, but they act like a bank. And that's a problem.
Oh, you just bored the shit out of him, Doku. Good on you there.
Well, and this is why I keep coming back to the idea of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mae, and Ginnie Mac.
He said Fannie.
Go ahead and look at Fannie Mae, Freddie Mae, and Ginnie Mac post 2008 and how they've been treated. They've essentially been treated as a dumping ground for bad loans from large institutional banks that operate internationally. It never should have been that. Those institutions shouldn't even exist to begin with. Where do you think a lot of our debt goes? Like, really, really do a deep dive into where a lot of our debt actually is. A lot of it is into failed welfare programs and student loans that never get repaid, mortgage-backed securities that are never going to turn a profit, and the government's response to it, because we have this wonderful, wonderful idea called central banking, never addresses, because their idea is, well, we can just print more money and, well, we can adjust interest rates accordingly. Yeah, treasury bonds go up, they go down, interest rates go up, they go down, and oh, by the way, we have access to a printing press with unlimited money because, you know what, we're not tied to a gold standard or a silver standard. The whole thing is an incredibly defunct system that should not exist.
I have argued the gold standard for a long time, but I'm starting to come around to more of a commodities standard. So you base it off the average of your GDP of what you produce via your commodities. So you would add together your gold, your silver, copper, what have you, and then what you export, and then base your currency on that. I think that's a fairly decent way to do it.
Well, the thing is, you could potentially have a fiat currency system that would work based on GDP, but you would have to have a hard limit on how much money you can print. And the reason that will never happen is because, first off, the Federal Reserve is not a government entity. They're a private bank. No one likes to talk about it, but they're a private bank. And they're directly tied to the Treasury. Again, deep dive topic of conversation I'm not going to get into. But if you wanted an actual fiat currency system, the first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to abolish the Fed. And you know the last president that tried to do that?
Okay. I'm going to cut you off right there. You're right. And the Fed. I agree. That's something everybody's talked about a million times. First off, Ace, check your Discord. I asked you a question in there. And if you do, we could discuss price, because I was given a flag from my dad and I need a shadow box. So what I asked is, do you have a shadow box laying around? Can't seem to find one at my local Walmart or anything. I don't know.
Oh, Dodge, I'm going to finish this point because first off, you have to abolish the Fed. And the reason you need to do that is because the Fed should not be in charge of interest rates. They can be a central bank all you want. It's the fact that they're in charge of interest rates and they have direct ties to other private banking institutions that operate internationally. That's where the problem starts to come in. So if you want a fiat currency system that actually works, first off, you need to put the power of money back in the hands of the mint and the Treasury. Take it away from the Fed. And the second thing you need to do is there needs to be a hard cap on how much money you can print in any given year. There's nothing wrong with printing money and inflation as long as it's controlled. The fact of the matter is, right now, it's not controlled.
There is. That was part of the whole thing with bloody Obama's $1 trillion. He invented a fucking $1 trillion bill to bring his debt down and spend it, and then do something with the interest. But yeah, there's like a $3 trillion limit or some shit like that of actual hard currency you're allowed to have, or some crap like that before you default. That was that whole AAA rate and crap.
And the thing is, that's still not even controlled by the actual federal government. That still has a direct tie to the Fed. What you would have to do is essentially tie how much money you can print to what the yearly GDP would be, and the best way to do it would have to be the same way that Congress has to pass a spending bill. It has to be proportionate to GDP, because that's the only way you're going to keep inflation in the current M1, M2 money supply actually in check, as opposed to just, holy crap, we're going through a recession, let's print $4 trillion and inject it into the economy and hope it props shit up.
Hang on, yeah, that's the thing, yeah, right, fucking, you can stop doing that by getting rid of one specific act, and that's the act that fucking, it's something to do with novelty bills. That allows you to print, like, the $1 million bill, or, $5,000 bill and shit like that. That was the thing that allowed Obama to print a $1 trillion bill. They still had the value of $1 trillion, but it was not an actual legal tender bill. And that was the act that allowed him to do that. Now, you get rid of that one specific fucking line in the act, and that wipes that thing out. And then you've got that fucking currency ceiling that you wanted. You can't get around it then.
What I was talking about was not fiat. What I'm saying is you take the sum of all the parts, and that is your GDP, the gross domestic production for minerals. So, like, do you really want $5 coal note? Sure. Why not? We can have that. Go to the bank and they'll give you $5 worth of coal. I don't give a shit. However you want to do it. But you add all of it together, and that is your limit. That is your cap. So if there was a rush on the bank, you could theoretically pay out. But that's everything you got. The government is now defunct.
Oh, and actually, Dodge, the reason I never thought I would actually find myself in this position, because I very much am someone who, advocates for something like the gold standard and hard commodities. But if you're going to go with fiat and if you want to do it right, I don't like the idea of having,
fiat. I am going with physical currency. So
No,
a silver
I
note.
know, Dodge. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. The reason that I'm actually going to make this argument is because if we do go with what you're advocating for, and I'm not necessarily against it, but there is another door that you're opening here that I don't like, where if you say have a gold note, a coal note, a silver note, a platinum note, an oil note, because those are commodities that are directly tied to the currency, that does open the door for nationalization of certain industries, which is something I don't like, because the last regime that did that wasn't communist happened to be a certain regime in 1930s Germany.
No, you do have a point, because they seized all the gold pretty much when they. No, that was after they ended the gold standard. What are you talking about? We're talking about redistribution of the commodities to the people if need be. And $5 in gold would be different than $5 in gold. $5 in gold, hell, they're handing you some slivers. $5 in gold, you're taking a bag home, right?
Which means you're gonna have different notes with different weights, and this goes back to the barter system as to where the whole reason fiat currency even existed in the first place is because it's a lot easier to carry one gold coin than it is a pound of coal.
Yeah, but listen, if I go and get the coal, and then today I cash my $5 in coal in when the coal is low, and then a month from now the coal is higher, so these bills are worth more, I go and transfer it to the currency again. It goes back into circulation, and there you have it.
Well, and that's the thing, because a coal note, if it says 5 on it, we'll just say, like, let's say it's measured in pounds. One five coal note is going to be worth 5 pounds no matter what.
Yeah, but we're not on horseback anymore. I can throw it in the trunk of my Camaro, for God's sakes. You telling me you can't take 5 pounds of coal home? It's like a sack of potatoes.
And that's the thing, though. If we're talking about, if we're only using coal as how we measure, this is why gold became the money standard. If we're talking coal and we're just trading in coal, 5 pounds of coal is 5 pounds of coal. But if you want to buy, say, let's pick something rare. Let's say you want to buy oranges. How much is 5 pounds of coal by comparison to how many oranges it's going to buy? It makes doing trade rather difficult when you're talking large denominations. That's why gold became the money standard in the first place, because it was small, it's rare, it has scarcity, and it retains value.
Yeah, but also back then, the numbers didn't change that drastically from day to day. Nowadays, you have to follow the commodities anyway. So if you base your dollars off of commodities, first off, a majority of the people are just going to buy silver and gold notes. Let's be real about it. Most of the gold is going to be the coal and stuff like that is going to be exported, or other people will invest in that as a side hedge in their portfolio, right?
Well, and see, real quick, you touched on something that's actually really important, and this is how we ended up with this fiat currency system to begin with in the first place. When you say silver and gold notes, those are essentially IOUs. That means you have one gold note, and let's just, for argument's sake, say one gold note means that there's 1 ounce of gold in a bank, and that's what this note represents. That's where you actually start to create the problem that we have today, because that one gold note isn't a 1 ounce piece of gold. That's the problem. If we want to go back to that type of system, you have to completely do away with the fiat currency system as it is. There's no way around that. That is a must. But you don't even want to go back to the note system. If you want to do that type of system that we're talking about right now.
I'm not going electronic, dude.
No, not even electronic, because you can that's still rife for fraud, and even then it's even worse than using a note system.
And Ace, I will be answering your question again. I didn't say her name before, but yeah, Jo Jorgensen is a Libertarian candidate for president. we will touch upon her again. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and let you finish talking and look up her, pretty much her pitch. I'm going to go to her website. Let's see what it's about.
She looks like a retard.
All right. Well, I'll just go ahead and finish my point here. If we really want to go back to the system where, we're not talking about notes, we're not talking about fiat currency, we're not talking about digital cryptocurrency. If you really want to go back to the system where we're using gold, silver, or ironically enough, even still copper, dime, and nickel, hence why pennies, dimes, and nickel have their name, the only way to do it is by going back to a coin-based system. Like, go back to the mid to late 1800s. It was called a silver dollar for a reason. It was a denomination of $1 US, and it was made of silver. That's the only way that you're really going to get back to that type of system. You can't even go back to a note system, because the note is simply stating that the US Treasury has at least 1 ounce of silver to back up that $1 denomination note. So if you really wanted to, you could go exchange that note with the US Treasury and get 1 ounce of silver in return. Even entertaining the idea of putting a notary system in place undermines the entire purpose of the system to begin with. So you're either using gold and silver coins or you're not. The buck has to stop there, no pun intended.
All right.
And Moondog, modern pennies are mostly zinc. But if you go back to 1982, they're roughly 80% copper.
This Jay Jorgensen, Sheila, she kind of looks like she should be like a British MP or something like that. She looks like she's the local fucking Labour member for Slough or some shit like that.
Well, all right. Let's see. We were talking money. Let's click on taxes.
This is a Libertarian candidate?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what her stance on taxes is.
Well, right here, it's on the screen, so look at your cell phone.
And real quick, yes, Moondog, 1981 for full copper pennies, but up until 83, they were, again, roughly about 80%. Not as much.
Obvious Enigma pass. My wife is way fucking hotter, and I'm not fucking losing my wife over that person. See, I was nice there.
You'd have to fight the cats for her.
Kind of looks like Miss Piggy. I mean, what?
So real quick, Moondog, anything past 85, if it's a penny,
Wait.
don't even bother saving it.
Wait a minute.
It's worthless. Get rid of it.
No. Okay. She's right. Skyrocketing healthcare costs. She wants to privatize healthcare. That's the Libertarian stance. Good. The highest imprisonment rate in the world. I told you guys. She wants to release the nonviolent offenders. A broken retirement system, unable to pay promised benefits. I touched upon that argument. Tariffs, though. They're destroying markets for American farmers? No, it's not. No. The tariffs are not destroying anything. It's the subsidies destroying American farmers and having them over-farm certain things, like corn for corn syrup. And then you tax the corn syrup. So if you eliminate the taxes and you take away the subsidies, the soda will rise to about the, whatever, and it'll equal out. You know what I mean?
I think I should mention too that those big bags of humanitarian relief that you send by the pallet load or the C5 Galaxy load overseas to disasters and stuff like that's mainly corn. So a lot of it you give away for nothing. So
which is why we have the subsidies, and we should stop doing that too.
Well,
I'm sorry. Hey, Australia, you have a lot of empty land. You feed Africa for a while, buddy.
Well, we kind of kind of do. Yeah, we do it with wheat though. But no, like there kind of is a strategic sort of, like, like looking at it militarily, like, globally, there's a strategic sort of benefit to having an overabundance, especially of something like a foodstuff. So like we got wheat, you got corn, we can both make bread, the most basic of foodstuffs. We've got enough to supply other parts of the world and all this kind of shit. And look at what's just happened, and keep bringing this up, but it's fucking relevant, China. Look at all the shit that we can't get or we don't want to get now because the only place we can get it from is friggin' China.
Well,
Well, no,
also
and-
one of the sorry, real quick, Dodge. Something that needs to be pointed out in regards to farms being subsidized or tariffs. Our two largest agricultural exports to China happen to be rice and soybeans, along with lean hogs. China buys a lot of lean hog from the United States.
Oh, and I'm going to step away anyway after I say two things. One, Moondog, your video, I tried to watch it because I wanted to see your reaction with the super spicy ramen, but I couldn't hear you, bro. So it's my vote that you do it again, and we can hear you this time.
Mhm.
So you got to eat that shit again. I saw you had another package. I saw it. I did click on the video. I expect another ramen video, and I expect you to succeed this time. Okay. What does she mean by an endless immigration crisis? Because the last Libertarian candidate, this is where I disagreed with him. Gary Johnson won an amnesty. I disagreed. Very much so. Not enough to not vote for him, but that was a disagreement.
If I had to go out on a limb, and I could be 100% wrong on this one, and if I am, I'll eat crow on it. But just from the wording, endless immigration crisis, it sounds to me like she would be in favor of an immigration quota and a merit-based immigration system.
Well, that's something you do have to watch out for because, it is something that we do have that's been rampant out here for decades, and that is, there's one particular party, it's the Labor Party, who purposefully brings in lots of migrants and treats them well and all this kind of stuff, and they're too stupid to know what the Labor Party's like, so the next election, all these migrants will vote for. I know there's differences in how long you can stay to vote and all this kind of stuff in your own countries and whatnot, but that's the tactic. If that's the person that got voted in, to free all the migrants, and they free all the migrants, well, obviously she's going to get the migrants' vote the next time, isn't she?
Well, yeah, and that's an argument that I've made many times before, but I guess I'll just go ahead and restate it for posterity's sake. When you bring in a certain group of individuals, and we're not even going to get into if they're legally allowed to vote or not, because that's, again, different argument. But no one's going to vote against their own self-interests. So, yeah, you bring in a lot of low-skilled, mostly uneducated people. It doesn't really do a whole hell of a lot of good for your country. So, no. Having a merit-based immigration system that has a hard cap, like a hard quota, let's say no more than 50,000 per year. Let's just go with that. You're only going to get the best of the best. You're not going to be bringing in farm workers who don't speak the language.
What else you should do too is you should do it smart as well, because you will end up going sort of the similar way with us with education standards and things like that. People want the money and they'll go to the places where there are the money, but then you'll have regional areas that'll have no experience and skills and all this kind of shit. And what you guys should do is, if you're bringing in someone who's like a brain surgeon or something like that, right, well, for the first 2 years in this country, you got to go out the back of bumfuck Idaho and be a doctor out there for a couple of years, and then you can move to New York or something like that and then earn your squillions of dollars for fucking touching up Sheila's noses or something like that. And you'll be able to spread out the education, you'll be able to spread out the expertise, and you'll be able to look after places that typically don't get looked after, like small rural areas and things like that. And hopefully, what also might happen is those people, when they do migrate, they go to the small country towns where they have to fit in with everybody else. They're not going to have a little, Muslim community or a little Asian community or something like that, and fucking, Dick knows fucking bloody Alaska or some shit like that. So they're 2 years there, they learn the culture, they learn how to be an American and all this kind of stuff. And then when they go to the city, they're already an American, assimilated to the culture and all this, and not trying to find their own little group and demographic to fucking hide behind. And,
also, I got two things I want to address. Bearded Bastard, I believe that's Ace. I want to address him, but I'm going to say this first. If you do have a merit-based immigration system that is predicated on a hard cap quota, yeah, you might get someone who's a farm worker, but you're going to get someone who already knows what crop rotation is. They're going to know why you have fallow land. They're probably going to have experience. They're probably going to speak the language. They probably want to be in this country. Those are the type of people you want. Even if they're a farm worker, you want those type of people. And it might not be, oh, I can grow apples, lemons, oranges, wheat, barley. They might not have the greatest repertoire, but they're at least going to be a beneficial addition. They're not just going to be someone who's out there just to pick fruit. We'll put it that way. And then to address Ace, Bearded Bastard, I believe that's you. To quote, and I believe this is in regards to this Libertarian candidate, I will use constitutional authority to eliminate trade barriers and tariffs, work to repeal arbitrary quotas on the number of people who can legally enter the United States to work, visit, or reside. That sounds to me like she's very much against immigration quotas and sounds very open borders, which puts me at ideological opposition to her.
That's the same thing Gary Johnson had. But look, you're never going to agree completely. So if I can agree 80%, I'll vote for him, which is what I did for Gary.
See, honestly, though, Dodge that one policy position right there for me is a deal breaker. I will never, ever, ever support that. No. Like, end of story. No. That is open borders. That is soft globalism.
Look at this.
Like, no.
Look at that.
You have to understand that at this point in time, any relaxation or repealing of your border stance or migration stance or anything like that is only going to lead to a massive flood of cunts you don't want. I'm not talking about the Mexicans or anything like that. I'm talking like all the cunts that are crossing the Mediterranean, all the people that we didn't want out here, all that kind of shit. Like, you cannot even think about relaxing it and all this. So the open borders is an absolute friggin' fantasy at this point. It's exactly the same as disarming Americans. It's never going to happen. And if it does, well, like, if you do open your borders, fucking that'll be the end of yours.
Well, not even just from, or real quick, Dodge, sorry, I'm going to cut you off real quick.
Really? You just went on a tirade. It's my turn.
All right. Okay. You know what? I'll be nice. Go ahead.
You'll be nice. Thank you. I appreciate
right.
you allowed to talk on my own channel. Thank you.
Taking over your channel.
Yeah. God damn. No. Okay, first off, even if she was elected, it's a long shot. Then you would still have the Republican Senate. It would never pass. But look at here. As president, I will use my constitutional authority to block any new borrowing. I will veto any spending bill that would lead to a deficit. Veto any debt ceiling increase. I will give every cabinet secretary a specific spending reduction target to meet and hold them accountable. There is simply no excuse for sticking our children and grandchildren with the bill for these bipartisan bloated budgets. Come on. Tell
Well, it's
me.
a lovely-
That's even. Sorry, go ahead, Farty.
It's a lovely sentiment up until fucking China does something to make us spend fucking trillions of dollars and shit.
I was gonna say that sentiment actually makes it even worse. How on earth? This is why. See, this is where the Libertarian Party starts to run into problems. How on earth are you going to have that type of sentiment, but then have the same type of sentiment where you're going to have unrestricted immigration because you're going to do away with tariffs and you're going to do away with quotas on the number of people who can legally immigrate to the United States to work and/or reside? That those two ideologies are fundamentally opposed to each other, and they're economically devastating. That is probably the worst stance you could take, because you know what's going to happen. Not only are you making the country less competitive, but you're opening up the country's borders without a quota, without a merit-based system, and you're doing away with tariffs. Do you see where this is going? Do you know how this story ends? The rest of the world is going to take advantage of you to a degree that will break you. Your GDP will barely manage to even hit 1 if you're lucky, if you let policies like that take hold. That is probably the worst thing I have ever heard of. And don't get me wrong, I'm not the most brilliant economist in the world, but I'm going to pause. I'm going to pause you because I need to point this out to people. This is the type of sentiment that will destroy a nation. It doesn't matter if it's the United States. Any nation that tries to take this type of sentiment is fundamentally ignoring one thing that is so incredibly dangerous, because people don't understand how economics works, because they either think it's boring or they've been taught Keynesian economics. Regardless of what it is, you're going to end up with an influx of people who are willing to do mediocre jobs that require no training, no specialization. You're doing away with tariffs and import taxes that are going to make you less competitive on the international stage. The one thing that you actually do have is limited resources, things like time, money, even food. The more people you have, the more limited and more valuable those resources become within your own country, while being less competitive to countries around you. Because the number one thing that cannot be replaced and never can be replaced, the most valuable asset of all, is time. The more people you have residing in your country, that makes time less and less valuable. This type of open borders, bring everybody in mentality, combined with with wanting to do away with tariffs or import taxes, makes your labor and your time worth that much less. It is a horrible idea, and anyone that tries to advocate that this is a good idea does not know what, and excuse my French, they do not know what the fuck they are talking about, and you should chastise them and call them idiots at every fucking chance you possibly have. This is how you destroy a country. Look at 1930s, look at post-World War I, 1920s,
They are not
1930s
talking
Germany.
about nationalizing anything. You need to hold it
No,
right
it's
there.
it's not
about
nationalization.
nationalization. What she is saying is an Ellis Island style immigration. There's no way she's going to let everybody and their fucking grandmother in. Don't be fucking retarded and hyperbolic.
What did she just say?
The fucking Senate. No.
What did she just say? Elimination. She's going to use constitutional. Dodge. She's going to use constitutional authority to eliminate trade barriers and tariffs.
There is no authority in the Constitution to do so.
Do you think she would actually try to do it? Because I guarantee you she could. And if she had support within the House and the Senate, they're already trying. They've already passed red flag laws. They've already done shit that circumvents the Constitution to begin with. Are you telling me that you don't think she would? with the type of platform she's running on right now? Bull fucking shit.
We haven't looked at her entire platform, sir. I suggest we do, because once again, it gets a little bit better. And I don't agree with eliminating tariffs, because I agree with eliminating the income tax. Therefore, I would use tariffs to fund my federal government. So I disagree with her on that as well. What we're talking about is 80%. What do you agree with the Democrats? 5? What do you agree with Trump? 45? That's me. I don't really agree with them. I'm not a fucking Republican. I'm not. I never have pretended to be. Okay, neutrality and peace. Turn America into one giant Switzerland. Armed and neutral.
Okay,
What's the best? She starts more wars than anything else.
Okay, that was actually appropriate. That was appropriate and funny, and I'm gonna drink to that. That was good.
Hey, you can laugh
you
if you want,
fucking
but what she is arguing, the Switzerland thing, you shouldn't throw Switzerland out there. But no, what she is arguing is bring the troops home, secure our country, and if you fuck with us, we kill you. If you don't, we let you live. That's it. We're not we're not the world's police force anymore. We're done. That's what she's arguing. I've always been in support of that. So
yeah, I'm okay with
but that's
I'm okay with that.
Been what I supported.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm only looking at the economic aspect of things. We don't need to be the world police. The rest of the world has militaries that can take care of themselves. We don't need to be there to do it. We can provide them support with need be. My issue is the eliminate trade barriers and tariffs and then get rid of arbitrary quotas for the number of people who can legally enter, work, visit, reside. That's where I have a problem. Because again, scarcity of resources is a thing. How do you expect to be competitive on the world stage while just having a very porous, if not completely open border policy? I can't get behind that.
I get it, but you need to forget about the border for a second there, Trump, because Trump forgot about it 3 years ago. It's a secret, but don't tell anybody.
Well, the problem with the whole, not being the world's police and all this kind of stuff, is that not just NATO, but there are hundreds of other different agreements and stuff you've got with individual countries and things that sort of dictate that, you kind of have to be. Secondly, the fact that you're a nuclear power sort of also dictates that you've got to take some form of responsibility.
Enough responsibility to push the button, party.
That's also, if you look at what it says under neutrality and peace, one of the things that she says is no U.S. military aid to foreign governments, which
I agree with that.
Yeah, that kills a fucking economic point, and fucking that actually makes foreign governments stand up on their fucking own 2 feet. Which sorry, I cut you off, Ace. No, bad. You're good. You're good. Go for it.
Oh yeah, no, I actually agree with that sentiment because that's money, time, and scarce resources that could be better spent here at home. I fully agree with her on that one. I support that.
Well, no, and she's kind of going by what Washington said when he left. Beware of foreign entanglements. Those were his words when he left office. We have not heeded them since.
See, it's not really as easy as that as well, because with the treaties kind of thing, like there goes ANZUS, which means there goes Pine Gap, which is American soil, which is a surveillance station that you guys feel is very, very important. There goes our over-the-horizon radar system. There goes a lot of things that you use us for a benefit, a strategic place in the South Pacific and all this kind of stuff. There goes basing rights in Japan and all this. There goes strategic positions there. There goes places in Europe and all this kind of stuff. Like, you can't really sort of pull back that far. You kind of do need these kind of interlocking, organising agreements and shit.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from. Okay, so the way that I'm interpreting what you're saying is the working governments together as like intelligence agencies, sharing information, working together to make sure that everybody is fucking safe, and that's fine. I can completely understand that point of sharing intelligence and making sure like we're fucking killing the fuck out of the shit bags of the world. Like, I'm completely cool with that. But the fucking foreign governments who aren't willing to actually stand up for themselves and are relying on the U.S. military to really come in and like train them up, help them fight their fucking proxy wars and all that stupid bullshit, not okay. Because let's be honest, that's a thing that fucking happens. But intelligence sharing, absolutely fucking let's do it.
Well, bearded bastard, what you're saying is we're not really talking about Australia. We're not talking about New Zealand here. We're not talking about Great Britain. We're not talking about Poland, are we? We're talking about Germany. We're talking about France. We're talking about South American countries.
I'll give you a better fucking more recent indication of this. Syria.
If I can, sorry, I cut you off again, dude. I'm gonna let you finish first.
You're good. You're good.
Okay, so all right. If this is an oversimplification or a misunderstanding, I fully expect to get roasted for it. In the same way that we don't want to be economically uncompetitive on the world stage, we also don't want other nations to be militarily dependent on us either. A stabilizing force when necessary, sure, I'll go ahead and give you that. But we don't want other nations to be reliant upon our military simply for their own stability so they can, sit back, kick up, smoke a cigar, and drink a beer, and then let us do the heavy lifting. I'm guessing that's the balancing act that we're looking at, and that's kind of where the core of the argument we're in currently resides.
Well, the reality dictates that, you guys are fed up with, being everybody else's big brother and all this, and we tend to follow you guys into a lot of these proxy wars and all this kind of stuff. The only unfortunate part about it is we are stuck in this status quo that, just take, for instance, what's happening now with the fucking Chinese Communist Party. If we all just, kick up our feet and go, you know what, fuck it, someone else's fucking problem, China's just going to walk in and say, thanks. So this is why we need to still be in these partnerships and forever vigilant and ready to fucking respond and all this kind of stuff. Because if we don't, they'll fucking take over.
All right, so let me kind of bounce off that because I know Farty, he's prior military service out of Australia. I'm prior military service out of America. Let's say fucking both of our countries said, hey, China's a fucking problem. You guys are fucking a joint task force. You guys are gonna fucking link up and fucking kill the fuck out of these fucking communist bastards.
Yep.
I have no issue with fucking sharing intelligence with fucking Farty. Fucking, he might be training some shit that I don't fucking know. Feel free to fucking train me in it. Fucking, I might be training some shit he doesn't know. I'm more than willing to train him on it. As long as our main fucking objective is to kill the fucking shitbags who don't want to prosper and have a peaceful fucking life, I have no issue fucking with military sharing fucking intelligence of, going out there and fucking killing the enemy. But when it comes to just training them because their fucking country's lazy and they're shitbag, that would be a different story. That'd be a huge different story.
Exactly, but I gotta be the civilian over here that goes, hey, why are we killing the shitbags? What did they do to us? I want to see the evidence. I want to see it. Let's say I'm president of the United States. Farty, you're foreign minister from Australia. Bearded bastard, somehow you made it, man. You made it. You're my Secretary of Defense. You're like, hey, we gotta kill these shitbags. Why? Well, you tell me. I mean, I want to know why.
Yeah, I can actually give you a complete demonstration in actual current events and all this kind of stuff. What Bearded Bastard was actually saying, we are currently actually doing at the moment with these freedom of navigation exercises in the South China Sea and all this kind of stuff, where both the Australian Navy, the United States Navy, and various other Southeast Asian navies are basically just driving around, taking photos of these artificial islands and stuff like that. Yeah, they're highly publicised. You can go look them up. The Chinese aren't making any secret of it. They're expanding purposefully into the South China Sea, encroaching on other people's economic zones with these islands, which are basically military bases and supply depots and whatnot. You know, we are doing these exercises, at the moment, and you can go and check this information up, like, so you can see this evidence and whatnot, and see what we're actually doing.
May
Oh,
I have the file?
You're talking about.
No, I'm gonna role play this out. May I have the file? I hand it off to my guy, and then I look at the American here. What do you think? Should we invade? How should we do it? Should I go to the Senate, to the House?
So what I would suggest keeping steady with what Farty brought up is keep an eye on it, get close, test the limits, see what their techniques, tactics, procedures are, see where their faults are. Because if something pops off, not only do we have the reconnaissance for it, but we also know how they're going to respond to it. And we also could then use all that information to rapidly and surgically destroy the enemy without it being a long-term war.
Okay.
But
Okay.
This is something. I'm not going to divulge some stuff I know, but I know what Farty is talking about. These are a lot of the artificial reefs that the CCP has been building in the South China Sea.
I know what he's talking about too. Yeah.
That's actually it's public knowledge. It's been put out there on the public sphere.
Yeah.
So,
Real quick, Dodge. Sorry, I'm gonna have to stop you real quick, and then I'm done.
Everybody's stopping.
Of course we are. No, honestly, the easiest way you do this, and ironically enough, it's something that the Don has actually been doing, because we know what China's weakness is, and he's already doing it. He's already put in place. You stranglehold their food supply. They import more food than they produce.
Mm-hmm.
We can do that.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, then you go do that. I send the 7th Fleet out there to do maneuvers right outside of China's territorial waters. As I do that, I'm going to have MC over in NSA do some drone surveillance, blasting right over top of China. And we're going to see what's going on the interior.
Well, and real quick before
some skiffs off of some of those reefs for me. I appreciate it.
Real quick before Bearded Bastard goes. Just because it's ironic, because it's Sun Tzu's Art of War. A victorious warrior wins before he goes to war.
Mm-hmm.
That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, subdue the enemy without fighting. All you have to do is just shut down all food supply to China, period, no questions asked. Where are they going to get it from? How many allies does the United States have? Where is China going to be able to supply their bases? Do it for 6 months. Choke them.
Despite us. And
So-
Russia's getting food
Russia doesn't produce enough food to supply China.
That's what
And
I'm
Russia's
saying.
not friends with China either.
Europe will supply them via
No, they
the
won't.
United States.
No, they won't. They can't produce enough food to supply China.
Oh my God. Okay.
So, okay, if we're talking about warfare, right, and this is one of the more nuanced, I would say, ideas about warfare, because up until World War II, we still had the idea of different enemy lines and pretty much marching towards the battlefield and different things like that. What really changed the game and really fucking slapped in the general public's face was Vietnam. of the guerrilla style warfare of taking out supply routes. And it's not just food, and that also affects morale, the will to fight, different things like that. So if you could affect how the enemy is able to eat, sleep, breathe, be happy, you could affect everything about that war and change it for your own cause. And this is why early on, yes, there was the whole bombing, fucking shock and awe tactic with Operation Iraqi Freedom, but it quickly changed to the hearts and minds, where it was trying to win people over, but at the same time, what we were doing is we were affecting the supply routes. We were affecting different versions of morale to dishearten the individuals where they wouldn't want to fight anymore. They would just want to go back to their family and be happy. So when you talk about, yes, fucking taking out supply routes, that's great. But at a certain point, they're going to be willing to fight. But it's how much that person has their heart in the fight. Now, if you're talking about somebody who's a fundamental fucking terrorist or a communist, they're going to fight through and through. There's some of them that are in it, but they're not fully in it. They're like, yeah, I'm doing it because this is what's expected of me. But if I see my way out, I'm going to fucking run. So a good 50 to 60% of them are going to fucking run. And with that, you could fucking take out a fucking enemy's fucking whole regime, so to say, quite easily, just off of guerrilla warfare tactics.
We even saw something like that. Not quite the same situation, but very similar in the Korean War, where a lot of Chinese soldiers they didn't have boots. It was cold as hell. They didn't have food. They didn't have pants. Like, they just surrendered to American forces simply so they had a hot meal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the problem is, though, with modern economics, you're not going to deal with that, really. Not when it comes to China. Okay, so China has colonies all over Africa where they're exploiting mines and stuff. Yeah, there's not much food there, but you know what there is there? Resources to sell. How do you think Iran is still around? Or North Korea?
But
I
Dodge,
mean,
how are you going to get that to the front lines? There's a reason that the Germans were using U-boats to attack supply convoys.
Produce is what you send in the front lines, and you import through the EU, which violates every treaty. Okay, France will sell to anybody. They were selling to fucking Saddam during the second Iraqi war. Come on.
That's not my point. How are you going to get it to the front lines?
Well, just real quick, that whole surrender thingy doodle, there is another thing that you can do with it. Just because they might just come along for a feed and then run back out to the field. That's not the be all to end all. They used to have in Vietnam the Chu Hoi program where North Vietnamese and Viet Cong could come in. They could stay as long as they want, get as much food and as rest, come off the battlefield, give us some information, and they usually all just disappear. They let them go because they were going to go anyways. They were never going to stay. They just come in, grab some food. They'll give them some information. Most of the time, it's outdated, and then they'll bugger off again. And it was just one more fighter that was off the field, pretty much at that point. And you can sometimes you could get some information out of them. A lot of the times, they used to do it just so as they could probe you, just freely walk around US facilities and fucking see what's going on behind their lines. But yeah, you can still get a use out of that surrender thing.
You could get more information and intelligence gathering out of being a friend to somebody than interrogating somebody.
Well, and also if you have a fighting force that has already been starved, that doesn't have their heart in the fight, and you're willing to, as opposed to interrogate or potentially even torture them, which we know that happens, let's be honest, you're going to get a lot more information out of them by providing them with a hot meal and saying, hey, look, you sit here and you do this. Or even if you just airdrop in food, it's going to sow chaos and discourse. And they'll eat themselves from the inside without you having to do anything.
Sorry.
Yeah, so once you starve the enemy out long enough, like let's just say it only takes, let's be generous. Let's say their heart actually really is in the fight. Let's say it takes 6 months. At the end of those 6 months, you go ahead and start providing them with food, like good quality food, because China, as I said earlier, they love pork. So hey guys, here's some lean pork. Let's just say it has it has the U.S. flag on it. Even just instilling that little bit of doubt. It's psychological warfare, I know, but even just instilling that little bit of doubt. You'd be surprised how effective of a tactic it is, Dodge. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, jokingly, I sort of say this in jest, but like I wouldn't be surprised if this tactic actually worked. And in North and South Korea, you just like if there was a thing that North was going to invade, you just line the DMZ with fucking like big fucking tables and like nothing but like roast meats and fucking bloody salads and fucking bread rolls and fucking all the different bloody sides and all this kind of shit. And as soon as they come over and they see all the bloody food, they're going to drop their guns and start scoffing their fucking faces and go, quick, go save our family from that fucking nutcase over there.
I wouldn't say that wouldn't work. The Confederate Army during the Battle of Shiloh got slowed down because they stopped to eat the still cooking breakfast of the Yankees, which is why they didn't win in day 1 and they lost in day 2. That being said, I think we're done here. We're going to circle in the thing. We'll go back to her next time, and we'll cover healthcare. And I'm not going to agree with her on the environment. I could already tell you. But
I mean, you should at least agree with her about what she said about the ATF. I'm just throwing that out there.
I wanted to get to that, but we're kind of circling the drain here, and my wife's going to get home with my loud-ass brother-in-law. So we better get off here before he walks in screaming and fucking yelling and annoying the crap out of me. And if you're listening, yeah, you know you fucking annoy me.
I mean, we could all get off here. Just don't look at me in the eyes.
We're out of here. Good night.